Today, I'm making a piece of furniture. No surprise there. But I'm also issuing a challenge to you. Okay, technically, it isn't just me that's issuing the challenge. It's also this guy and this entire company, which means it's a challenge that will have some pretty good prizes. Because let's be honest, if it were just me, the prizes would probably be a little bit different. I'll give you all the details in a minute, but for now, let's get into what I'm making and how it relates to us challenging you to make something too. So I've been moving around this absolutely massive walnut slab, getting it ready to become part of a tabletop for a small side table. And you might be saying to yourself, that's not a massive walnut slab, what are you talking about? And you'd be right. It's actually just a small offcut chunk from a massive walnut slab that I used for a previous build. But what I started to realize with this build is that besides the physical aspect of moving around a huge chunk of wood, working with a small slab poses all the same challenges and requires all the same skills and techniques that a big slab does. So sometimes the idea of purchasing and working with a massive slab might feel daunting and out of reach, but if it's something you've always wanted to try, I'm here to show that all the same fun can be had at a much smaller scale. And speaking of doing something you've always wanted to try, that's literally the theme of this challenge, and one of my favorite parts about woodworking. Take this side table, for example. In just the design and techniques to build it, there are multiple things that I've always wanted to try. The base, it kind of has a segmented, barrel, stave, tapered, turned thing going on. How's that for adjectives? And this might sound kind of weird, but it's something I've always wanted to try. Then the top, and to be fair, I suppose I haven't always wanted to try this, but ever since I did the slab dining table a few months ago, I wanted to mess around with the same concept, but maybe go a little more extreme with it. So for the last few months, this is something I've always wanted to try. And trying new things is such a fundamental part about learning and progressing any craft that we felt like it would make a great theme for this challenge. It's broad, there's plenty of room for interpretation, and we hope that means we're going to see all sorts of awesome projects. And big thanks to Rockler for always being so supportive of the woodworking community. They're not only a great resource for woodworking tools and supplies, but also for learning and helping spread the craft of woodworking through awesome things like this challenge. But the gist is that the contest is going to run through the end of the year. It's open to all woodworkers, and it's super easy to enter. Just post a picture on Instagram using the hashtag #RocklerTryThatChallenge. And post progress pictures along the way too. We love to see things as they come together. And if you're feeling extra ambitious, make a video about the entire process and share that as well. One of my favorite types of humor, for myself at least, is to be self-deprecating. I'm sure there are many deep-seated reasons for why people like to be self-deprecating. I know for me, it's maybe a way to take the pressure off of myself. I can joke about being bad at something so that if I'm actually bad at it, I can say, yeah, I know I'm bad. But sometimes it seems like people get a little bit annoyed by it, especially when I downplay my woodworking or furniture making. And the thing is, no matter what, I'll probably always think I'm just okay at what I do. Call it humility or maybe just lack of confidence. But either way, no matter how you look at my ability or how I look at my ability as a woodworker, one thing can be certain, and that is that I'm objectively bad at being a CNC operator. Oh my God. Well, that was not good. I don't know what it is about it, but I mess up way more often when using a CNC than I do when doing things the old-fashioned way. And to be clear, when I say old-fashioned, I'm talking stuff like this, not the real old-fashioned stuff, which, I mean, it makes sense. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. We had Nintendo, but not the internet. This is Nintendo, and this is the internet, and honestly, I'm still playing Super Mario Brothers here. But I digress. I might be bad at operating a CNC machine, but I never let that stop me from trying. And where there's a will, there's a way. Then in a situation like this, you get to figure it out on the first one, then on the second one, you're an old pro. This curvy slab joint thing I'm doing here isn't a new idea for me. Like I mentioned, I did a big dining table using a similar concept a few months ago, but I thought it would be cool to do it again, but with a little more drama. So I went with beech on one half because it's so homogeneous and kind of plain looking, and opposite from the Claro walnut, which has so much figure and variation. But I kept everything else pretty much the same, including the small chamfer along the curvy joint. Even though in my dining table video, that seemed to be a bit of a sensitive subject for some people. I got quite a few comments from people telling me that the crack was going to basically be a bottomless void for crumbs that would become a nightmare to clean up over time. So, because I'm doing the exact same thing, I want to put everyone's worries at ease. So even though I'm pretty bad at using a CNC machine, I still use it at times when I feel like it's necessary. But here I am using a Rockler circle cutting jig and a router to cut a circle. So why? How do I decide when to use one or the other? And I'll be totally honest, I don't know. I really can't give a true across-the-board answer to that question. From a video perspective, I don't want to just show the CNC because that would be boring. But from an actual woodworking perspective, I'm really just not sure. Some things make sense and some things don't. That's just how it is. And cutting this circle on the CNC is something that would have made total sense, but I did it this way, with the trusty old router and a circle cutting jig. I guess at the very least, I know I won't mess this up, or I should say my chances of messing up are much lower. But at the end of the day, I could have gone either way, and I went with this one, not really for any other reason than to do something different. And I just use the CNC a lot, so let's do something else, mix it up, keep it interesting. You know, variety is the spice of life, as they say. So, actually, maybe that's the across-the-board blanket answer. If you ever wonder why I didn't use a CNC machine for something, or why I did use a CNC machine for something, the answer is because I was trying to mix it up, keep it interesting. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. So what's something you've always wanted to try? Skydiving, bungee jumping, hand-cut dovetails? Well, if you answered with dovetails or anything else woodworking related, you're in the right place. Maybe you're looking to do your first serious furniture project, take that step from construction lumber to hardwood. If so, go check out our online courses, try something new with a little bit of guidance. That's a really good way to do it. Or maybe you're an old pro just looking to try a specific technique. Personally, I've always wanted to try to make some sort of base that was built with segmented, angled, tapered pieces. There's something about the mix of angles and tapers and having to get everything to come together just right that really kind of intrigued me. For what I was doing, I needed there to be a total of 10 pieces to make the whole round, with each one getting an angle and taper cut onto both long edges. And what this does is create a tapered cylinder, which I guess is just a fancy term for a cone, a tapered cylinder, cone. Even when I'm talking about it conceptually, it hurts my brain a little bit, but then when actually trying to make it a reality, I really just have to trust that my brain actually understands what's going on. So this was a 2-sled operation, one sled to make the first cut on one edge of each piece, then I could adjust the setup and use the other sled to make the second cut on each piece. It's one of those things where you kind of do all the math, set everything up, double check everything the best you can. Then while you're actually making the cuts, you just have this period of time where you just kind of hope it's all correct. I want to say this short period of time is a kind of moment of zen where you just kind of surrender to the math and the numbers, the lumber, and your hard work come together in a perfect harmony to create something wonderful. But it isn't. It's a anxiety-filled few minutes where I'm constantly second-guessing the math, doing everything I can to make the most accurate cuts, and mostly doubting both my physical and mental capabilities. And Maybe this is just me once again downplaying my skills, because luckily I'd put in enough effort at the beginning and the two halves came out looking pretty dang good. Though nothing is perfect, and they needed a little bit of help to get the mating faces to be flat against each other. How's that for doing things the old-fashioned way? Okay, remember just a couple minutes ago when I was going on and on about how I don't really know why sometimes I choose to use the CNC and sometimes I choose not to? Well, this time I know exactly why. Basically, I needed to flatten the top and bottom faces of the base glue up so that I could accurately and safely put it on the lathe. And I really racked my brain trying to think of a way to do this. There's so many situations where I wish I could just take, like a laser beam and cut things with that laser accuracy, or do the same things in the real world that I do in Fusion 360 when I'm modeling something. Wouldn't that be nice? Unfortunately, I can't do either of those things in the real world, but I did come up with what I thought was a pretty clever way to get it done, and the CNC was my best option. I definitely was trying to come up with ways to make these cuts on the table saw or bandsaw, but with all the angles going on, I just wasn't sure I could do it accurately enough. And we have this big CNC machine that's designed to be able to do stuff exactly like this, so why not? And to my surprise, even with my limited CNC capabilities and lack of confidence, it worked incredibly well. It's always the times when I think I'm totally going to mess things up that they actually go pretty well. It's funny how that works. Turning things on the lathe is something I kind of always thought I would love doing, and even as I've incorporated turning into some of my furniture over the years, I kind of told myself I really love doing it. But in reality, it's one of those things I think I just kind of tolerate. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing tool and people create really amazing things on lathes. So I don't want to be overly dramatic by saying that I hate turning or something like that, but it's maybe more an expectations versus reality type thing. I see clips on Instagram or YouTube of people turning big, beautiful bowls, getting these long, curly shavings, and it kind of has this magical vibe to it. Then in reality, I'm over here chipping away at a red oak tapered cylinder, and before I know it, my pockets and shoes are full of tiny splinters, which honestly feels not really magical at all. But you know what my pockets aren't full of? A big, bulky wallet filled with all sorts of stuff I never use. Sorry, that was the best segue I could come up with. But either way, I want to thank Ekster for sponsoring today's video. If you've never heard of them, Ekster invented the first trackable wallet and is now working to help everyone upgrade the way we carry the everyday items we take with us wherever we go. And they're doing it with sustainable materials like vegan leather and space-grade aluminum. I've been using the aluminum card holder lately. Of course, I had to keep it full plumb. And I have to say, going from a traditional wallet to this thing has been near life-changing. It can hold up to 12 cards and cash. And like I said, it's made from aluminum that is graded for space, all in a size that's smaller than my cell phone. On top of that, I'm using this tracker card that slips into the expandable back sleeve, so I'll always know where my wallet is. Here it is. It also has little solar panels. That's right, solar panels, so it can charge in the sun. Ekster has all sorts of other stuff too, so if you're looking to slim down what you've got in your pockets, go check them out and use the discount code SHAUNBOYD to save 25% through November 3rd, or click the link in the description. All right, thanks Ekster. I have a love-hate relationship with scrap wood projects. On one hand, using up leftover material in a meaningful way is a great feeling. You get to clean up your shop a bit by getting some of those offcuts out of the scrap bin. And in a way, it almost feels like you're making a new piece of furniture with free material. But then on the other hand, scrap wood projects can kind of end up looking like, well, scrap wood projects. And I know in the past when I've tried to make something out of scrap wood and it ended up looking like scrap, it's because I designed beyond the material, which meant I had to stretch what I had too far or supplement with material that maybe didn't quite make as much sense. So with this piece, I was very intentional about the design being within the limitation of the material. And the best part was that I didn't buy a single thing specifically for this piece. No wood, no hardware, no nothing. Which is also why I'm having to cut these brass screws to length. But hey, they still worked great, and that's what matters. And to be fair, the scraps I have on hand might be a little bit different than what some people have, but the idea is the same. I designed this piece with my material in mind, and I think the piece turned out much better because of it. As this piece was getting closer to being finished, I don't really remember exactly when. It might have been after it was actually done, but I remember Chris was looking at what I'd done so far, and he said, "You know, I think this is one of your least SHAUNBOYD looking pieces." And I remember thinking that was actually a good thing, but it also made me wonder what about it felt different than the other things I've made. I could have gone through every little detail in the piece and dissected why I thought it was or wasn't my style, but I realized that the bigger takeaway was how it got to this point. For some reason, I was pushed outside of my usual design tendencies, just enough to where at least one person noticed. And maybe it was the fact that I was using scrap wood and, like I just talked about, I was designing with that in mind. Or maybe it was the fact that I was trying things that I've always wanted to try, but never really had a reason to. Trying these new things helped push me out of my comfort zone and do things I maybe wouldn't have done before, and to me, that's a very good thing. So, as happy as I am to have tried new things on this piece, and as happy as I am with the outcome, I really want to see what everyone else comes with, and that's why a challenge like the one we're doing is so great. The possibilities are endless, and the real satisfaction comes from doing something new and hearing the story behind why somebody did something or how long they've been waiting to try it. And hopefully you'll come out at the end with something beautiful that you wouldn't have made before. But even better than that, you'll also have tried something new and learned something new in the process. I know I certainly did. So once again, thanks to Rockler for helping us put on this challenge and for the great prizes. Thanks to everyone for watching, and a preemptive thanks to everyone that's participating. Links to everything I talked about are in the description, and hopefully, if you've been needing a little motivation to try something new and take that plunge, look no further than the Rockler Try That Challenge.